Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let's dive in. We begin our review of global economy with key releases in the US, Europe, India, and Japan. U.S. financial markets faced headwinds after consumer price inflation slowed less than expected in January. Most of the inflation was driven by sustained home price increases. Market sentiment was further dented after retail sales in January declined, reversing gains in December, stoking fears that high prices are taking a bite out of consumer budget. In addition, producer price inflation rose at the fastest pace in 5 months in January, largely because of the rising prices of services. Shifting our attention to the Eurozone, Germany's wholesale prices declined for the 10th month in a row in January, while the French jobless rate held steady at 7.5% and matched the rate in the previous quarter. International trade swung to a surplus in 2023 from a year ago after the import prices of energy fell sharply. The UK entered into a technical recession after the economy shrank in the fourth quarter. Inflation held steady at 4%, and core inflation at 5.1% stayed well above the target rate of 2%. The mixed economic reports in the UK are certain to encourage policymakers to keep rates unchanged. Moving on to Asia, Japan's economy contracted in the fourth quarter and entered into a technical recession, but the GDP data are generally revised sharply, and other business condition indices are suggesting rising economic activities. Japan's economy also slipped to the fourth place, dropping behind Germany when measured in the nominal terms in US dollars. Let us review key events in global bonds, currencies, and commodities markets last week. The yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury rebounded above 4.3% after U.S. consumer price inflation eased less than expected and producer price inflation was ahead of expectations. Gold eased a fraction in the week to $2,009 an ounce on the growing prospect that the Federal Reserve is likely to delay its rate cut after 2 reports indicated stubborn inflation. West Texas Intermediate crude oil prices rose 2% to $78 in the week on the ongoing tensions in the Middle East and a weakening in the U.S. dollar. The natural gas prices in Amsterdam in Europe fell 5% to €24.50 per megawatt hour amid ample storage levels and above normal temperatures across Europe. The euro hovered at $1.07 and rebounded from a 3-month low, and policymakers suggested more solid evidence is needed that inflation is on a sustained path towards its target rate and wage pressures are easing. The yen traded above 150, sparking verbal intervention from the finance minister on the widening yield gap between the U.S. Treasury and the Japanese government bond. We now review key developments in financial markets around the world last week. The S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite traded volatile after investors reviewed 2 reports suggesting hot inflation and a decline in retail sales in January. European markets extended weekly gains and reversed the previous week's losses, and investors looked beyond rate uncertainty and reacted to positive earnings results. The Nikkei 225 jumped to a new 34-year high, an inch closer to a record high in 1989, supported by steady international fund flows, a weakening yen, and the hopes of ultra-loose monetary policy continuation by the Bank of Japan. China's markets were close to celebrate the lunar year, and the Hang Seng Index rebounded after bargain hunters returned. India market indices advanced in volatile trading after the current market deficit declined, the trade deficit shrank, and earnings results supported positive market sentiment. Let us shift our attention to market movers of the last week. An earnings update from leading companies. DoorDash declined after the food delivery company reported a wider than expected quarterly loss. Applied Materials soared after the semiconductor equipment maker reported better than expected quarterly results amid flat sales. Trade Desk jumped after the digital advertising company reported better than expected quarterly sales and estimated a stronger than expected fiscal first quarter results. Coinbase Global surged after the crypto trading firm reported a better-than-expected fourth-quarter result and issued positive annual outlook. Cisco Systems declined after the networking company issued a quarterly and full-year outlook that fell short of some investors' expectation, and company said it plans to lay off 5% or about 4,000 employees. Stellantis, the parent of Chrysler and Jeep, and Fiat announced a stock buyback plan of €3 billion and hiked its annual dividend. Airbnb declined despite the online booking platform reporting better than expected quarterly results, and gross booking in the quarter soared by 15%. Instacart, the food delivery company, reported positive quarterly results, and gross transaction volume rose 7%. Lyft soared after the ride-sharing company reported fourth-quarter results and reported solid increases in active riders and rides and revenue, and at the same time net loss shrank. The Coca-Cola company and the beverage maker reported mixed quarterly results in the fourth quarter and said it is getting harder to increase prices. Restaurant Brands, the parent company of Tim Hortons and Burger King, reported better than expected quarterly sales and solid system-wide and comparable same-store sales increases. Hasbro declined after the toy maker reported sharply lower than. Next week, investors in the U.S. will review the FOMC meeting minutes, updates on manufacturing and service sectors, and both sectors are expected to show a slight slowdown. Existing home sales report is likely to show slowest activities in decades. On the earnings front, Walmart, Home Depot, Etsy, Nvidia, and Berkshire Hathaway are scheduled to report earnings. In Europe, investors are looking ahead to GDP updates from Germany and manufacturing and service sector surveys and final inflation reading in the Eurozone. International trade data from Switzerland and Spain are also on tap to be released this week. In Asia, the People's Bank of China is expected to hold rates steady on Monday, despite the calls for more stimulus, and the Central Bank of South Korea and Indonesia are set to announce their rate decisions. In addition, the central banks of India and Australia are expected to release their latest policy meeting minutes, giving more insights to future rate paths. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, earnings releases, SEC filings, stock movers, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can also get the latest financial books on Redera.com and keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com. That's all for today, and we will see you next week.